Hello everybody, my name is Jeremy James Enaje, and today we will be talking about complex numbers. Before we start, please leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and ring the bell for notifications. Now, what are complex numbers? These are combinations of real numbers and imaginary numbers. For those of you who don't know, real numbers are any number in the number line, for example 1, 0, pi, 2, and a lot more. Imaginary numbers are impossible numbers, like I, which is equal to the square root of negative 1, and 3i, which is equal to the square root of negative 9. Complex numbers. The general form of complex numbers is a plus bi. A is the real part and b is the imaginary part. And I is equal to square root of negative 1. This is a complex number because real and imaginary is a complex number. Examples of these can be 2 plus 4i, and we can name this z, and the real part of z is 2, and the imaginary part of z is what multiple of I is. So in this case, it is the number 4. Another example would be 3 plus I. We can name this a, and the real part of a is 3, and the imaginary part of a is 1, because there is an imaginary number here which is 1, but we don't write that. So complex numbers can be plotted in a complex plane, which looks like this. The vertical axis is where the imaginary part is, and the horizontal axis is where the real part is. And this is called the complex plane. On z, to plot this, the real part of z is 2, so we are going to count from the center to the right. So 1, 2, and the imaginary part of z is 4, so we're going to count upwards on the imaginary axis by 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So z would be here. Z would be here. So this is z. On a, the real part of a is 3. So 1, 2, 3, and the imaginary part of a is 1. So here, so a would be here. This is a. Another example would be 1 minus 5i. We can call this b, and the real part of b is 1, and the imaginary part of b is negative 5, because this indicates that 5 is negative, so it's negative 5. So when we plot this, it would look like this. So the imaginary part is negative 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the real part is 1. So it would be here. This is b. Another example is negative 2 plus 6i. The real part of c is -2, and the imaginary part of C is 6. So when we plot this, the real part is -2, so 1, 2, and the imaginary part is 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It would be here. This is C. Now I'm going to give you 2 more examples. So 3 plus 7i, we could call this F, and the real part of F is 3, and the imaginary part of F is 7 because the multiple of I is 7. Another example would be -6 minus 5i. You can call this G, and the real part of G is -6, and the imaginary part of G is -5. So we are going to plot this on a complex plane. So F, we'll start with F. The real part is 3. So this is the real part. 1, 2, 3. This is the imaginary part. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It would be here. This would be F. On G, the real part would be -6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the imaginary part would be -5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It would be here. Now I want you to solve these 5 complex numbers, which is A equals -4 plus 7i, and then 5 minus 4i, which is B, and 8 plus i, which is C, and -3 minus 2i, which is D, and -7 minus i, which is E. So pause the video and answer it first. The answer on A would be, the real part would be -4, and the imaginary part on A would be 7 because that is the multiple of I on A. We are going to plot A. So it would be, this is the imaginary part and this is the real part. So the imaginary part of A is 7, just like I mentioned a while ago. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the real part of A is -4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So it would be here. That is A. The answer for B would be, the real part would be 5, and the imaginary part on B would be -4. And again, because this sign indicates that 4 is negative. When we plot B, it would be this vertical axis would be the imaginary part, and the horizontal axis would be the real part. The real part of B is 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the imaginary part of B is -4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It would be exactly here. This is B. The answer for C is, the real part of C would be 8, and the imaginary part of C would be 1 because there's an imaginary number here in case you forget. When we plot this would be the imaginary axis and this would be the real axis. So the real part of C is 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the imaginary part would be 1. So it would be here. This would be C. Going to answer D, which is negative 3 minus 2i. The real part of D is negative 3 and the imaginary part of D would be negative 2. When we plot this on a complex plane, it would look like this. This is the imaginary part and this is the real part. So the real part of D is negative 3, so 1, 2, 3, and the imaginary part of D is negative 2, so 1, 2, it would be here. This would be D. Now for the last number, which is E, equals negative 7 minus I. The real part of E would be negative 7 and the imaginary part of E would be negative 1. When we plot this on a complex plane, this is the imaginary part and this is the real part. The real part of E is negative 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the imaginary part of E is negative 1. So E would be exactly over here. And that is E. This is Jeremy James again. And don't forget to leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell for more videos.